Between Netflix and Hulu, and I guess Amazon, because there's actually a movie that I want to watch tomorrow to do a video on called They Live Inside Us, which I think is, I don't know if it's a remake, there's a series on Amazon called like The Witching Hour or something that I think that this is based off of. I don't know a lot about it, but I am interested. I saw a trailer for it and it gave me, I'm like a nostalgia sucker, but it gave me nostalgia for like 80s horror, and I feel like anytime you see kids riding a bicycle during Halloween, that's just the vibes that I get. So anyway, between all these streaming services, it has been a great Halloween season so far, and it's not over yet. So I've been excited that they've been releasing so many new shows and movies, because that means I get to watch them and review them. So it's been very fun. There's a show called Monsterland on Hulu, and I only watched 2 episodes of this. They are about 50 minutes each episode, and each episode is named after a city and a state. So the last show that I reviewed, which was called Evil and is on Netflix, I talked about having like Mulder and Scully vibes, or like X-File vibes. And with this show, it doesn't have like lead investigators where one's playing the critic cynic and one is a believer. They don't have that, but it does have just general X-Files vibes, like the stories. It's very reminiscent of early X-Files, where it had Monster of the Week episode, because each episode is really self-contained. It's very supernatural, science fiction-y. And episode 1 is called Port Forchon, Forchon, I'm butchering everything, Louisiana. So what is his name? Jonathan Tucker? So I recognized the actor who we first see. I said, dude from Texas Chainsaw Massacre drowns a woman, cuts her face off, and stitches up his own face in a state park in Louisiana. So that's how the episode starts. I think his name is Jonathan Tucker. I've seen him in a lot. And then another familiar face, if you've watched Last Man Standing, the youngest daughter is a waitress in this. Her name is Tony, her character in the show. And we meet her as she's getting the crap beat out of her by her kid. Her kid is having a fit. And, they're in this dirty house. She's really young. Probably, I think she's portrayed to have been a teen mother. And her little girl's name is Jack, which is confusing to people when they first meet, because they're like, why does she have a boy name? I don't know. But she has like a neighbor or a woman that she knows take care of her kid during the day, I think because that's the only like affordable option that she has. But her daughter is very violent, and the woman has children of her own that are in danger because her daughter, I think, went after one of the kids with scissors. So that is absolutely terrifying. The creepy guy from the beginning, the killer, goes to a gas station to gas up his car, and when he goes inside to pay, he asks about any hotels in the area. And when the cashier says that there aren't any, he asks, well, where do you live? Which is so fucking creepy. And the guy's just like, up the road, my house. And you think something really horrible is about to happen, but then the guy saves himself and says, well, if you're looking to get something to eat, there's a diner nearby. So the guy goes to the diner. We see news coverage that the waitresses are watching about a serial killer that they nicknamed, I think they said, the Blind Butcher. I was watching this while my kid napped. So like my kid napped. So I had the volume kind of low. I think that they called him the Blind Butcher. So we see a flashback where the waitress's baby daddy comes for Jack's birthday, and they kind of like are gonna have a moment, but then Jack's like, I need a bath. So Jack is in the bath because Tony wanted Jack to go to sleep so that she can have some time with her ex-baby daddy. And Jack's like, I need a bath. So Jack's father is sitting on the toilet. I think he's drunk. And Jack starts crying because something happened, and she runs in, and then they have some kind of an altercation. And then Jack's father hits both Tony and Jack, knocks out Tony and Jack, and when Tony comes to, Jack is floating head down in the bathtub. And that is another one of these moments in these shows where they use kids, and it's hard, very, very hard to watch. And I was literally sitting there holding my breath like, oh my God, please let that kid still be alive. And she regains consciousness and coughs up the water, and she's okay. And honestly, I wrote here my worst nightmare because I have a 1-year-old, and my worst fear is like me just being absent-minded or me getting distracted and then something horrible happening to my kid. I never knew the things that you worried about when you become a parent. Never knew before becoming a parent, but you can torture yourself thinking of all the horrible things and ways that you need to keep your kids safe. And I don't need to go off on a tangent. If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. So the serial killer comes into the diner and gives Tony $100 just to talk to him. And she's very skeptical. She's like, what do you really want? You're not just giving me $100 to talk. But they're interrupted because she hears screaming in the kitchen. The daycare woman drops Tony off and is leaving, or drops Jack off and is leaving, and Jack is covered in blood. Tony runs out to talk to her, and she says, your daughter bit the mailman. And is like, I'm not watching her anymore. I'm so sorry. Good luck with your life. So then we get flashbacks to when Tony first found out that she's pregnant. She's very obviously still in high school. She's got a couple of her high school friends in her room, and she's talking about how her grandmother is very religious and she can't have this baby, and they're going to do the abortion themselves. So her friend gets out this like giant ice pick thing, and they rub it with alcohol, and she lays on the floor, and her friend is trying to carefully put it up inside of her. I don't even know if I can say this stuff on YouTube, but anyway, Tony is either in pain or has second thoughts, or both, and makes her stop because obviously she had her baby. I write here that it's very hard to watch, and I feel horrible for the child because of what the child was born into. Like, nobody wants the child. The child clearly has problems. Like, when you watch this stuff as a parent, like, it just hits you differently. And very depressing, and it sticks with you. We see later on that the blind butcher stops into the restaurant to ask Tony's fellow waitress where she lives. And I write, this shit is getting stressful. Because I'm like, oh my God, he's going to go to her house and he's going to hurt Tony and Jack. Which really, it's interesting because before I don't even need to go off on this tangent. You're probably tired of hearing about this. But before I had a kid, and still now, but before I had a kid, my sympathy was with animals. Like and it still is, but now you can add kids to that. So anytime there's animals or kids in a movie where they get killed, or there's threat that they will be killed or harmed in some way, I get very stressed out, and I don't really like to watch that kind of thing. her power has been turned off for non-payment. He shows up, like this just happens, and she's got her flashlight out. She's put her kid to bed. She opens the door, and he's like, I'll give you $1,000 if I can get off the road, park my car here, and stay at your house for the night. So she accepts because clearly she needs the money. She's getting ready for bed, and she hears him in the shower and realizes that she didn't get any from her baby daddy, so she decides she's going to go get her some and gets in the shower with him. And then we later see them in the bed together talking. And that's when she's talking to him about her daughter and that there's something wrong, and that she thinks that Jack is that way because Jack knows that nobody wants her. And it made me think of my Vivi and how much I love her, and I just cannot imagine somebody not wanting their child and like bringing them up in such horrible positions. But I guess if you were a teen mother, I'm 34 years old, my child was planned, so I guess I can't judge. I mean, I can, because that's not a proper environment for a child, but I just mean, I guess it makes sense for why she is the way she is, Tony. Tony gets curious about what's in his car because he won't tell her. So after, I think his name is Alex. I just remember what his name was. After he falls asleep, she takes his keys and goes out to the car, but he catches her and is like, open the box. She opens the box, and we don't see it, but given from the first scene of the show, this episode, he's cutting off faces, so we assume it's a human face. He comes at her with a knife, but then cuts his own face off, and then she passes out, and we see her waking up on the couch the next morning with Jack shaking her awake. And there's a woman in her house that she's never seen before. And she goes in the kitchen, and we start to realize that it's Alex that he's like got new skin on. And then Alex starts telling Tony about how he met this supernatural thing that brought him along as an accomplice, and he's able to basically shed skins and get new lives. But once his accomplice started killing, underage girls, he killed a 15-year-old and took her skin. He killed that person because he didn't agree with that, and then he was on the run from them because he didn't think that they were truly dead. It's just messed up all around, and it's funny because, you've got this supernatural sci-fi element to it, but what's really compelling is the human story. What's really sad and scary is the human element to it. Because that other stuff, we know, doesn't happen, so we're not worried about that. Okay, so I'm looking back over my notes. Alex called themselves alternatives who wear other people's skin. Oh, and then his accomplice, see, if I would just consult my notes before I start talking, things would be great. So yes, his name was Alex, and his accomplice he called Mr. Gray. Alex drowned Mr. Gray. Tony, after talking to Alex about how he was so desperate to leave his life and to join forces with Mr. Gray so that he could leave and start a new life, and anytime he decided to start again, he would just wear a new skin suit. That inspired her to just leave. So she takes Jack, they up and leave. They get to this restaurant, they're ordering food, and they've decided to start using new names. Tony has started to call herself Isabel, and Jack becomes Jill. And everything's going fine. Isabel is having a conversation with a random woman, and she's weaving this tale about how she's a nurse and that they live in Colorado, and they're just passing through, they're just visiting. And then Jack has another fit. And then we cut to Isabel and Jack, or Jill, in the car, and Jack has fallen asleep, and Tony is sitting there contemplating what to do, and she sees a Mercedes with a blonde woman stepping out to go get food, and she makes the quick decision to take Jack from her car and put her in the Mercedes with $1,000 and just leave her daughter. So she sits there for a while and watches the woman get back into her car, and then she starts driving away crying. And of course, as mom, I'm like a broken record, but as a mom, that gutted me. And then right at that moment, Vivi woke up from her nap, and I literally just wanted to snuggle her so much. But then she went back to sleep, and I was able to watch another episode. So episode 2 is called Eugene, Oregon. And we see a boy named Nick who is trying to get prescription medication for his mother who'd had a stroke, but it's over $200 and he doesn't have that money because he thought she had insurance, but this insurance no longer covers this particular medication and she can't use a generic form because it makes her nauseous. So he gives her what money he can and only is able to buy a few pills. So he's back at his house and he's playing games with people online, and he sees, so it's the kind of games where you're on webcam, and he notices that in the back corner of his room there's this tall shadow person, and he freaks out, but then he comes back in and tries to communicate with it and starts doing shadow puppets with it. It's kind of weird. So then he takes a picture of it, and because it's 2020, he asks the internet, what is this? People thought that it was a hoax, and but then he meets a group of people that say that they know what it is. So these people are saying that these shadows prey on people and turn their lives to absolute crap, and that they're to blame for all the bad things that happen in people's lives. So Nick has dropped out of school and he has a fast food job, for which one day he comes to 2 hours late and gets fired. He walks past a garage when he walks to and from his house, and we learn that his father 15 years ago used to work there before he walked out on him and his mom. And he asked the people there one day if they know where he is, but nobody knows him. So at some point, at one point in the episode, Nick is in his mom's room and his mom is asking him to brush her hair because it's all knotted up because she's like in bed all day and she needs help grooming herself. And the hairbrush drops underneath the bed, and then he sees the shadow person's hand come out to grab it. And I guess he feels like things are amping up, like his mom's in danger. And so he builds a light gun, ? So he's talking to the people online about, like, I guess he feels bad about like wanting to kill this shadow person with his light gun because of the shadow puppets. He thinks it might be nice. I don't really know. And then the people online are like, look, you told us about your dad. I found your dad. And then Nick starts getting really angry and starts having, it's weird, like Nick has these images in his head that you don't know or if they're necessarily real or they're just in his head. And then in his head, or the people tell him, I'm not really sure which it is, but he either imagines or his friends tell him that his dad started a whole new life and has a different son who is actually a good dad too. And in the end, he goes after the shadow person in his home, and he gets the shadow person cornered, and the shadow person has its hands up, and he goes to fire the light gun, but you hear actual rounds. So then I asked myself, was Nick crazy? Was the shadow person actually his dad? Like, what are we meant? I guess we're meant to think he was going crazy, and all along the shadow person was his dad, and his dad ruined his life, which he did. So I guess we're meant to think he's crazy and actually wound up killing his dad. I don't really know. But I want to watch more. I really did enjoy this show. I haven't done any like research on this show. Just to kind of have a backstory. I feel like when I do watch shows, I'll Google them and see, like, or at least read the Wikipedia. So I don't know where this story came from. Let's see. So according to Wikipedia, this is a drama anthology horror created by Mary Laws based upon the short story collection North American Lake Monsters. Stories by Nathan Ballingrud. Consists of 8 episodes. Reception, 72% approval rating based on 18 reviews. Though it struggles to find a strong through line, Monsterland's cross-country scares are a perfect showcase for its talented cast and crew. Metacritic gave the series a weighted average score of 63 out of 100 based on 5 views, indicating generally favorable reviews. Caitlin Dever is the name of the waitress, Tony, her real name. And then I was right that the serial killer, Jonathan Tucker, that's his name. So that is it for that. Let me know if you have seen this series. I plan on watching the rest of the episodes. Let me know what you thought about it. And right after this, I'm going to record a review of Book of Blood. So if you like this video, give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, I plan on doing a bunch of creepy videos for October. October is my favorite month. I love Halloween. I'm trying to soak all of it in because I feel like you anticipate the holidays and then they fly by and then they're gone and then you're like really sad. So October is my month to do, I want to do a bunch of new stuff as it comes out, which is why it's so exciting that there have been all these new shows and movies posted, and why I'm just like, I want to watch them as soon as possible and do these review videos because they're so much fun. So I want to do a mix of brand new stuff and then maybe some like obscure old stuff that I haven't seen before that I'm checking out for the first time. Might be pretty cool. So I'll see you in the next video.